Welcome back, Hit Play Nation. We are the Hit Players. We're here because we just watched well, I guess we didn't just watch, but Spider-Man. Is it Into or Across?
This one is Across.
This one is Across. Okay, so
yes.
next one they might go
Beyond.
They're gonna go beyond it. Okay.
Yes.
Cool. All right. Just got to make sure, I don't know if we're far from home or are we going home or I don't know what the situation is.
I think he's pretty far from home in this movie.
We just watched it. It's a movie. We'll say that much. Before we get into this one, your stance, I think we both are pretty upfront about our appreciation of the first one.
Yeah, it's a good one.
But for maybe those who are just checking in for the first time,
go watch our animation episode. I talk about it enough. First one is a good one. Great animation style. Good introduction into the Miles Morales Spider-Man.
It's like his first mainstream appearance.
Mm-hmm. Outside of
other than Childish Gambino
stuff, yeah.
Reference in Homecoming.
So, good introduction to that character in his universe and the seeds that they lay for it's called Into the Spiderverse, so the other dimensions come up, but this new one takes it even further. So, by all means, it's not necessarily required viewing. I
feel like it is.
I feel like
just because the characters' interactions and their relationships with each other.
That's understandable.
You kind of have to go into this knowing how everybody feels about one another.
I would argue otherwise. I think you can see this movie without seeing the first one, but I guarantee you, if you see this one, you're gonna want to see the first one anyway. Afterwards, immediately. So there's not the villain from this one is not a villain from the second or from the first film, but the character relationships do.
There's arguably not a villain.
Yeah, that's true.
Which I'm sure we'll get into.
But both big fans of Into the Spiderverse, wanted to see Across the Spiderverse right away.
Oh yeah.
I've already seen it twice.
Did you think that there was going to be a sequel?
Yes.
When the first one came out.
When the first one came out.
Because I feel like it was pretty
cut and dry.
I thought it was going to be all right, that's that, and then Miles is going to do more simplistic stuff.
I had a feeling that there was going to be a sequel. I didn't think that there would outright be a trilogy, but
yeah,
as far as I can remember, since they have announced that there would be the second film, I think the trilogy has been pretty solidified that there would be 3 movies.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have mind a franchise where it was just Miles Morales.
No, especially not animated the way it is.
Yeah, just doing his thing in New York. But all of these 3 films will be the Spider-Verse trilogy is what it's going to be. It's not just a Miles Morales trilogy like you had the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Or the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man. This is just the Spider-Verse itself is what it's going to be
covering. It's its own comic line to a degree.
Kind of, yeah. I think you can think of it that way.
Like a comic run.
All right, so initial reaction to this film.
It's pretty good.
Pretty good?
Pretty good. From the get-go, the animation is a gajillion times the power of 5.
Yeah.
You're just at some point, I was thinking to myself, I went, there's no way they're going to do this the whole movie. And then they change art styles, which I think is one of the coolest things ever. There are within scenes, shot to shot, where art styles are just completely different. And it is I see why this took 6 years to come out.
Yeah. It also makes sense that the third film is going to be released next year.
Yeah.
Because I assume that they were in production at the exact same time.
Probably.
Because the improved animation, you can't wait another 6 years.
It improved.
Oh, yeah.
Because I remember, I haven't really rewatched the first one a whole lot, but I remember moments where I'm the Leap of Faith.
Yeah.
Still one of the greatest single shots in animation. And so I still remember seeing vivid scenes like that. But seeing this one, I was just oh, they've done it. I don't know how they've done it.
Yeah,
but they've done it.
So when we did our animation episode, I talked about how the blend of 2D and 3D animation that they picked up with Into the Spiderverse that has almost become kind of the norm for 2D/3D animated films. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like they really have come to an understanding of it that blends it so well. There are still some scenes where you can tell that it's still early in this new styles.
Yeah.
Kind of, we need trailblazers like this movie to get us to the end, but 100%, just every single scene in this film, they just knock it out of the park all the way. From each dimension having a different art style, to each individual art style being so well developed and used to its full potential. Whether it's I don't even know if this is going to be like spoilers or not, but like the Gwen Stacy, her universe, all the like pastel watercolors, but it's not just that it looks that way, it's how it's used as a storytelling device during her conversations with her dad.
It's a great way to evoke emotion.
Yeah.
It was just like I immediately picked up on it because it's like, she'll be mad about her father. It's not. I mean, it's in the first 5 minutes. Okay, so it's not really not really big spoilers. And so it'll be like, green and blue because she's sad or up like emo, and then they reconcile and it's like these warmly colors. And I'm like, I don't think I've ever seen that in an animation movie where you're changing the colors in the same scene, and we don't cut or anything. It just immediately transitions.
To me, it feels like they were almost treating each individual shot like a panel of a comic book.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Where it's like, I remember a long time ago, so I don't know if you remember the YouTuber Freddie Wong, but he used to do these like 3D stuff. He's talked about using CGI to convey emotion rather than just being cool visual effects, like robots fighting each other, stuff like that, and how he's rarely ever seen that. And I feel like this movie picked up on that with a far greater understanding, I think, than we give animation credit for the most part. This movie straight up has like everything everywhere all at once vibes in terms of the fact that it uses its visuals to just go the extra distance and to convey every emotion that every character is feeling all the time.
It uses all aspects of filmmaking to the nth degree.
Which just immediately stand out. One of the best things about this film, the visuals, the animation is absolutely incredible. I loved it so much. But how do you feel about the actual Miles Morales story in this film?
So this is not a spoiler because it's apparently well publicized, as you told me. This is just setting up for the third movie.
Yeah.
Which
caught you off guard.
A little upset about.
That seemed like the general vibe when it ends on the to be continued, and everyone is like, "There's gonna be like a third one." And I'm like, I saw it on Twitter while I was entering the theater. Like,
I was trying to stay away from.
I tried to
the hype.
Yeah,
I'm not on Twitter, so that's probably what it was too.
Yeah,
but I don't know. It caught me a little off guard. I was like, oh, they just Han Solo is in a Frozen. They just did that to us. Nice.
That's the thing too, is that this movie is actually fairly long.
Yes,
and I think if
2 hours
you
and 20 minutes.
went off of that runtime alone, you would think that it would be like wrapped up by the end of it.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's just setting up for the third film.
Well, that's what I was thinking when the ending was going on and they were doing that whole sequence. I was like,
we can't have a third.
Are we having a fifth act? What is going on here?
Pretty much, yeah.
You guys just gonna break the laws of screenwriting 101?
I will say this. First time I saw this film, 100% felt that way too. I was like, even though I knew that this was only going to be part 2, by the end of the film, I was like, are they going to like leave it off here, or do they have more to do for this? And the second time I saw it, I understood the pacing a little bit better. Not to say that this movie's gonna have to require multiple viewings, but
Yeah.
I think knowing beforehand, before you see it, that it is, it's not so much a sequel to the first movie, more of like a prequel to the third film. So
that's what I was saying when I said, "Did you think of a sequel?" Because this doesn't. It doesn't feel like a continuation. It just feels like a variation of the the first movie.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we'll get into the characters later, but the main issue I have with this movie is a lot of the characters are not who they are in the first one, and it kind of made me a little upset.
That's understandable.
But we'll get to it in a little bit. But other than that, I really enjoyed it. I think it was a very, I mean, it was a good time, which is all you can ask for out of a superhero movie. Sorry. I think the character of Miles is still the most interesting Spider-Man we've seen on screen. That's including all the Marvel and other Sony iterations.
Yeah.
And I think that while it was starting to get on my nerves about halfway through the movie, the emotional familial beat,
the actual theme of the film,
was like, all right, we get it. You guys love each other. We kind of harped, which, by the way, is one of the things I liked about the first one. I'm not trying to say it's like a bad thing to have in a movie. I think that's the one thing where I was like, oh, this is cool. Because, it's like he has a loving father. And you don't see that a lot in movies. With
superhero films, yeah.
Especially in superhero movies. I mean, we just went through a 15-year run of the MCU where it's literally they all have daddy issues.
Yeah. That's every DC hero ever.
So, but the second one, I was definitely like, all right, we get it. Or at least I get it. Like, you guys love your son.
Yeah, I think if I had one criticism for this film, I would say that this movie takes a lot of time in the emotional scenes.
Yeah.
Not to say that they don't drag on, but they come to a pause.
They almost hamper the pacing, right?
A little bit, yeah, because it feels like sometimes they give the characters a lot of room to breathe, and there's a lot of moments of just silence and these big wide shots where you see the whole city and the characters are just kind of off in the corner of the screen.
Yeah.
And it as the viewer, it puts you in like the emotional state and kind of the mood that the characters are in. But at the same time, the pacing of the film in those scenes just like stops dead in its track. And I think part of the reason why this movie felt like it was going to have a fifth act by the end of it was because so much of the first hour of this film is just conversations that are just really drawn out and slowed down. Not say that they're like, were unimportant,
right,
or they didn't mean anything to the characters. They did, but pacing at the very beginning of this film was very, very slow. That's for sure.
There's probably there's 2 fights.
Yeah, and the the fights are cut in between the dialogue scenes.
Yeah,
not the other way around like you would probably normally see them. That being said, though, I mean, I liked his relationship with his parents in this film.
I love their relationship.
Yeah.
It's very refreshing.
It was very like real
and honest. Yeah, it is. It's not like they actually. My one pet peeve about all these things about parents and children in movies is like the parents are these like dictators.
Yeah,
and the kids are like, you never listen to me.
Yeah,
and so for the parents to be like, all right, we're gonna listen to you now. Talk to us. And he kind of does sometimes, and he kind of doesn't sometimes. It's like that is how I feel like most. I don't want to say most. I shouldn't say most, but I feel like a healthy, child-parent relationship should be.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I feel like in these films they just talk more like real people than they do in the live action. The normal like Marvel quippiness that you get from like the live action films isn't present in this film in the same way. These characters are still funny and they're still witty and making jokes, but it's not it just feels different from it does from the live action films.
It's because they're not cheap jokes.
Yeah,
It's not.
Basically
He's
it.
behind me, is he?
Yeah.
He's not behind me, isn't he?
They're not cheap jokes.
Or it's not, let's have this emotional, drawn out 5-minute sequence and then it's
End it with a joke
Yeah.
to ruin
It's-
all dramatic tension.
it's this is
Mhm.
actually like when spoiler alert, Miles gets chased by Spider-Mans. It's in the trailer.
Yeah.
Don't fight me. And there's that scene at the end of it where they're talking, or he's talking to, Miles and Miguel are talking or whatever, and some stuff happens and people find out things. You're like, this is where the MCU would throw in like a quick
Yeah.
oh, I thought you guys just ran out of minutes and didn't want to talk to me.
Yeah.
Like something like that. And so for
Yeah.
for the creators to be like, no, we're actually gonna have Miles feel this,
Yeah. Feel this pain.
feel this betrayal.
Which good on them. They did that, and I think they did that well.
Oh yeah,
But that would be my only complaint. Is just I feel like the pacing sometimes really, I feel like they give the characters too much room to breathe to a degree. I think. Not to say that this movie had to be like super fast paced, that it couldn't be 2 hours long. Just to say that there's a lot of like focus on atmosphere and mood.
this is definitely more of a mature.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Not even just like
Not
bad
dark or
guys,
edgy.
people killing each other,
Yeah.
which it doesn't really even happen that much, but just the like comprehension. I don't even want to. That sounds kind of.
It takes its characters more
Yeah,
seriously.
yeah, exactly. You have
Yeah.
to actually like
Empathize.
yeah. It makes you. It invokes emotion, and you have to somewhat kind of. I'm not saying this is freaking like Gulliver's Travels of.
This is like the most emotionally intelligent film of all time. Right?
Yeah, it's nothing like that. But
Do you think part of that though is because this film somewhat focuses more on Gwen Stacy than it does on Miles Morales?
kind of.
You kind of get like an outsider's point of view of his, his family problems and relations and stuff like that.
Kind of. Yeah.
I think I appreciated that more the second time I watched it. Was
It's not asking your viewers to be like kids.
yeah,
Really.
It's not asking you to see things through Miles Morales' eyes. Typically, the way that
Right.
like we empathize with characters is just like whoever the first person we see is. Like it's like almost always that automatic, and so it's like
Yeah.
to start the film with Gwen Stacy and focus almost entirely on her kind of reframes all of Miles Morales' things where you're like, okay, now I'm not so much empathizing, like I'm empathizing with him because I'm seeing it from another, like I'm being forced to be in his shoes at the same time, kind of, which is just good storytelling.
He's almost a side character in his
Yeah.
own movie.
Yeah.
Which isn't a bad thing because it also just enhances his own character,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
'Cause yeah.
Good music too. There was a James Blake song. In
Shout
there.
out to I think
I love
Metro
that.
Boomin was the
Yeah.
musical producer on this one.
Good music in this one. Outside of that, honestly, go see this film. I really enjoyed it. This is probably one of my favorite ones that I've seen so far this year. It totally gives me like everything everywhere all at once vibes in terms
Hopes.
of just how not just how well it respects its source material, because it's across the Spiderverse. They include everything.
Everything.
From Spider-Man
It,
history.
yeah, it's pretty annoying.
You can tell who the real nerds in the audience are when they just like show one character, a thing on screen real quickly, and only they laugh at it. Me, anytime Ben Reilly showed up, I'm
Yeah.
like, it's him. But
The best Spider-Man.
yeah, no, I would 100% recommend this film.
Yeah.
This is
I would too.
easily my favorite of the year. But now we're gonna spoil it.
We are gonna spoil it.
because Miles Morales dies at the end. No, he doesn't.
He got snapped.
Yeah, he gets snapped. You know what's really funny? I follow a lot of people who work in the comic books industry online, and a lot of them, post the release of this film, have talked about how, like, I don't know how old or at what age you saw the Tobey Maguire movies.
Very
like,
young.
That's like that Spider-Man, right?
Right.
But like people younger than us, they see Miles Morales as Spider-Man. Like that's what so many people are growing up with, is him as being their Peter Parker in the same way that we grew up with like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. I find that so amazing that like these animated films already have so much influence over people's perception of this legacy character.
That's weird though, because you would think it'd be Tom Holland.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. But these films are also marketed as kids' movies to begin with because they're animated. So many younger people are seeing these ones.
I guess it helps that Tom Holland's character is so one-dimensional.
That's true too.
Dude, it's like you kind of just don't have any like sense of emotional attachment to him at all.
It also doesn't help that individual Tom Holland Spider-Man movies are just normal Marvel movies.
Yeah.
You don't get until you get to the big event.
He's
movies.
never really the big attraction in any of his movies.
Yeah.
Right? Because even in Homecoming,
everyone was there for Jake Gyllenhaal.
Well, that's the second one.
Oh yeah.
But the first one is
the first one was
Michael Keaton. So it's like, and Iron Man. Iron Man was in that one.
Yeah. He was in the trailer probably more often than.
So it's like,
Yeah, that's true.
How do you want your character to be a part of pop culture? You don't even let him have his own thing.
Yeah. So
he has to be attached to all these,
other
more popular entities.
So I think that's what these animated films are doing right, is that they are presenting, they're not disappointing these characters to audiences,
Yeah.
So
they're faithful adaptations.
Absolutely.
To a degree.
Yeah. That being said, second time I watched this film, pacing felt better, probably because I knew what was coming.
Yeah.
But in terms of the overall story of this film, some of the issues that I had.
I'll give you an issue.
Well, I feel like the story has two stories in it.
Yeah. You have the Gwen Stacy, and then you have the Miles Morales.
You have Gwen Stacy, her story, and her relationship to Miles. But then you have Miles and his relationship to
his parents,
which...
And then you also have the big bad.
Is kind of connected to the, Miguel character in a way. But, I feel like that plot starts so much later than it should.
Which one? The Miguel?
The Miguel one.
Yeah.
That it feels like there's almost two separate films here in one.
Yeah.
Which is probably why it feels so long. And the first time I watched it, I was like, that's the pacing issue, was that it feels like there's just two different movies. And then the second time I watched it, I was like, okay, first half is just really slow. I kind of I see the seeds of that Miguel story and villain part were just barely planted enough at the beginning of the film that an hour can pass and I can still remember what was going on, which I didn't really like that too much personally. But what was your issue that you had?
They just 180'd the characters of Gwen and Peter B.
That's true too.
And it drove me up. That drove me up a wall. I was I don't know, man. I don't like it when they do that.
That's one of those things. I agree with the Peter B thing. Peter B. Parker. His character in this film felt like he was just there because he was in the first one.
Yeah.
And they couldn't get anyone else to fill that.
Yeah.
No other character the audience
would know.
Because
you spend the whole first movie, he's this mentor. He's teaching them things about the world. They start to actually, they develop a relationship.
Yeah.
It's almost kind of like,
father
I don't want to say
son.
father-son, but uncle, nephew kind of vibes.
Yeah.
Right? Like big brother, little brother kind of vibes.
Yeah.
And then this comes out and it's like, oh, yeah, by the way, I've been lying to you this whole time. It's like...
Yeah, I get the Gwen Stacy stuff.
I don't get it. Gwen Stacy makes sense because she's young.
And
she's impressionable.
Was also running away from her.
She's also running away from home. She doesn't want Miles to follow in that same mindset, yada, 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 whatever.
That's understandable.
That one is understandable. Still don't like it. But I get why it happens, right? You got to have some kind of emotional agency.
Yeah.
But the Peter B one, it was like...
It felt almost like rude.
Yeah, you would definitely not.
Yeah. That's what, even watching it a second time where Miles Morales is in the furnace after he's being chased and he's talking to Peter B. Parker. He's in that like furnace room and Peter is alone with him and he's like, hey man, just listen to me. That's where he's like, hold the baby. You'll feel better if you hold the baby. And I was like, all right, this is where he's going to like be like, hey man, like I can get you back home and do all this. And he's like, doesn't do that. He's like, you got to listen to Miguel. And I'm like, no, that's like where they have to like.
Yeah, because then it's revealed that he's being tracked or like he's transmitting his location or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what the F?
Like, he was transmitting his location, but he wasn't even trying to get him on his side anyway. Yeah. Or he wasn't trying to get on Miles' side anyway.
It just felt like a dirty betrayal.
Yeah.
It just wasn't
that
works if you set it up right. It just didn't feel like it was set up right. Especially because it's literally 5 minutes after seeing him for the first time again.
Yeah, for sure.
Like the Gwen Stacy one is set up right. Mm-hmm. It's, because she's like a little apprehensive towards him. Mm-hmm. She's distant. She is very ambiguous in her answers about where, he asks her like, oh, where you been? What are you doing? This and that. She's very ambiguous. Why can't I join you?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, there's something there. But then it's like, Peter B, it's like, hey, by the way, what's up, man? Yeah. Haven't seen you in a while. By the way,
kill your dad.
Yeah.
Pretty much. So in terms of, how about this? Which villain did you like more, Spot or Miguel? Or who do you want to see more of in the third film at the very least? Personally, I love the Miguel character.
I was going to say Spot is just one-dimensional. He's just like, I'm a bad guy.
Yeah. I feel like he's going to be the bigger villain in the third film, though, because he's the one who's actually going to cause.
You think he teams up with Spot? That'd be kind of cool.
Maybe not. I hated his character, though. He was so annoying to listen to.
Who, Spot? Oh,
yeah. I just found him annoying. But the Miguel character is super, super cool. To take a Spider-Man, but, like, his, like...
Make him properly edgy.
Not just make him properly edgy, but, yeah, because his understanding of Spider-Man's duty is so, like... twisted in a way where he can still justify it using the language that Spider-Man uses, but he goes to lengths and extremes that Spider-Man shouldn't do. It's like it's almost like a Batman version of Spider-Man in a way.
It's very black and white.
Yeah, but I thought that was really cool because not only do you have Miguel, but the entire organization that works under him, that's everyone else. Versus Miles. That whole chase scene was so cool, in my opinion.
One of the better chase scenes in animation.
Oh, yeah. So, how about this? In terms of all the new characters who are added, out of all their voice actors, who do you think performed the best?
I would say Oscar Isaac. There were moments where I was like, this sounds like Oscar Isaac. But I've never heard Oscar Isaac talk like this. This is cool.
I honestly didn't even recognize it.
Yeah.
I didn't know that he was in this film, so I didn't even recognize him the whole time I watched it. Same with Daniel Kaluuya, because I'm so used to hearing an American accent from him.
Oh, he's Hobby.
Yeah.
That's who he is. Okay. I was wondering.
That second time I watched that, I was like, oh, yeah, this is what he sounds like on Hot Ones. I know. I recognize his voice. But he has such a thick accent and uses so much slang that, like, even when there's no music, I couldn't even understand what he was saying.
I think that's a very common problem that's going on in the
just because
what the Redditors are saying.
Yeah, but definitely those two were probably my absolute favorites. In this film.
There's a lot of funny lines in there too.
Oh yeah,
I was very impressed how funny it was.
This movie is extremely funny,
and it's more than just cheap comedy. It's like actual physical comedy.
Yeah.
Or like, a joke here and there. The rules of thirds are very well. Just good timing. Yeah. Really too. Just really good comedic timing. Where you're
which is weird too, because in a weird way, even though the emotional side of this film is so slowed down. The action scenes are incredibly fast paced to the point where even watching this film the second time, I could barely even catch things that I was trying to look out for.
Mm-hmm.
Where it was like just the way characters would run through locations or swing across places, I was like, I can either watch the screen or listen to what they're saying.
Yeah.
And it's like there's something to catch no matter which one you focus on. So it definitely, especially at the beginning of the film, it feels almost too fast-paced for the start.
Yeah, right?
When he's chasing Spot around the city and they're having a conversation at the same time. And I barely understood a word that Spot said the whole time because I was just like trying to map out the geography of the scene where they go in one black hole and come out the other one and go out.
Oh, I stopped. I was like, I'm just going to save myself the trouble and just... I trust in the directors to know what... to have spatial awareness enough.
Pretty much, yeah. There's like one or two scenes. There's a scene where they meet Miguel for the first time. And it's Hobie, Gwen, Miles, and Peter B. Parker. And then at the end of the scene, Spider-Woman shows up. She was never established to be in that room the entire time. And I'm just like, where
they just wanted her in there.
Yeah. Like, what the heck? Okay. You can just, put a little insert shot of her just hanging out in the background. But never mind. So, yeah. It's a real fast-paced film, that's for sure, towards the end. And what do you think about the ending, too? Both where you think it will go, but also just how it works for the film.
I appreciate the redemption of Gwen's character.
Mm-hmm.
She decided that she was in the wrong, which is how she should have been from the beginning. But, again, I understand.
It only took 2 hours to do. That's more than most people. That's
yeah,
not
right.
as much as most people. Yeah,
that's true.
Most people it takes entire lifetimes.
That's true. The team up thing was kind of cool, but it was also like a ultimate tease.
Yeah.
Also, it's kind of like, how are you? So they're setting up to just immediately go into the final fight, or at least
that's what they want
right?
you to believe. Yeah.
Because Spot's already getting set up to basically nuke New York City.
Yeah.
So it's like, how are we gonna have a alternate Miles versus Miles,
showdown,
duel of the fates, and also have enough time to go? And I guess time works differently in dimensions. I'm not gonna think about it too much. I don't know. I just feel like it's gonna be kind of a lot to tackle.
Yeah, they have
in one movie
3 separate. They're going into the third film with 3 different storylines that they have to tie together by the end of it.
They're trying to do a Spider-Man 3.
Yeah, which I mean to be fair, look at like Infinity Wars. They did like how many different storylines are there in Infinity War? There's so many different characters, but they tied it all together at the end. In my opinion,
the thing about that is they had one tying force, which was Thanos.
Yeah, this movie has Spot.
This man has 3 tying forces. This movie has 3 separate stories with 3 separate forces tying them together.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Because Infinity War, it's literally, okay, we got to stop Thanos. So how do we do that? Let's go to this world. Let's go to this world. Let's go to this world.
Yeah.
We didn't stop Thanos.
All right. See you guys next time.
See you guys next year.
In this movie, it's Prowler, Spot, and Miguel. So, yeah. And they're all in different universes.
Yes, exactly.
So, yeah, that'll be interesting to see how they pull that one off.
It's going to be like a 3.5-hour Return of the King type movie.
Hopefully they didn't write themselves into a corner. Sometimes you get in a position like that and you're like, Well,
that's why I was so upset about the tease of Prowler / Anti-Miles, which is like, it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. It's like, you're just adding more.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially because it's like,
it's like when a TV show adds a big bad 4 episodes before the final episode.
Yeah, I feel like they've just teased it, so I don't think they've jumped the shark immediately with it. But the reference to, like, spider that bit you came from another dimension, you go to your home dimension, your home dimension is the one that the spider came from. Like, that through line is only established and then fulfilled in the span of like 20 minutes in a 2-hour-long film. So by the time he gets to his dimension, it feels like, why are we just adding this in when we already have 2 other things we got to worry about? So definitely, and also like
it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. Well, actually, no. Spot does mention that the spider came from another dimension at the beginning of the film, but that doesn't become relevant until the very end.
Right.
And so you have you set it up, but you don't reinforce it until 2 hours later, and then it immediately becomes irrelevant again.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely feels like it came out of nowhere, but this is a film about things coming out of nowhere. Anyway.
I'm sure it'll all work out fine. It'll just be interesting to see how
it will probably be 3 hours long.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. About that for sure.
I don't know how I feel about that.
There are another things I loved about this film that I also loved about the first movie is so much attention to detail in everything. This is, again, another kind of animation thing, but I feel like the character animation was so much better in this film. All the different art styles for everyone. I know this is Sony, and they didn't do the Lego movie. And so I know that they didn't get the original studio who did the Lego movie to do their stuff, because their Lego animation was just a little bit little less fluid than the Lego movies itself. But nevertheless.
You look like actual Legos.
Yeah, they actually look like stop motion to a degree, which I wouldn't doubt if it was actually stop motion. That would make sense if it was, and not just animated.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah, for sure.
The live action stuff can die. I hate it.
You didn't like any of that?
I hated it. I hated all of it.
I feel like they included it just... My voice cracked there. I feel like they included it just enough that it was okay, but to a certain extent it felt like you do it once and then you see if it goes over, and then the third movie you do it as much as you want, right? Because like sometimes if they just had Donald Glover and he was like one of the only live action elements interacting with the 3D, that would have been just perfectly
that would have been fine.
But when Spot goes through the portal and talks to the woman from Venom, it's like, this is like, you haven't got it down pat just yet, guys. Like,
also, it's from the Venom movie.
Yeah.
Like, I had to explain to you what the reference was.
It's like, that's not... Venom is a part of Spider-Man, but like not that big of a part of that. Anybody watching this will have cared for the Venom movies too much. But
it was pretty silly.
Nevertheless, animation in this movie, fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
I think the characters in this film are good. I loved Miles Morales and his interactions with his parents.
Good character. Good young character. Because sometimes you forget that he's 15. I mean, in the beginning, they're like, oh, he's a sophomore. I'm like, oh, okay.
Only 1 year has passed.
This changes how much I... Because at first I was like, all right, I don't really like this guy. He's kind of annoying. I don't know. You're Spider-Man. Figure it out. And then they're like, oh, he's a sophomore. I'm like...
Oh, he's just a kid.
That makes sense. That makes a lot more sense now.
Oh, he's a kid.
Yeah, I thought
like
he like was graduating.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, all right, yeah, like grow up a little bit, kid.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, no, okay, understandable.
Yeah, for sure. I love the Gwen Stacy character as well. All her stuff with her universe and her relationship with her dad.
Interesting relationship she has.
Spider-Punk, also one of the best characters.
Very funny. Very funny. Good comedic relief character.
Really, my only complaint would be the pacing.
Yeah.
And the fact that there's just, by the end of the film, we have more problems than we started with. And I feel like if you're setting up for your third movie, you want just like enough problems that, like, you don't want too much to deal with.
Yeah.
So I think you're right on that point, that's probably going to be a little tough going into the next one. Outside of that, though, I would 100% recommend this film.
Yes.
This is like one of my favorite things I've seen.
Probably going to win animated movie.
Hopefully,
unless that stupid Kraken movie.
What was it called? Like, Elementals.
Both.
Both.
What was it like? Rava's
Oh, it's Princess Kraken, whatever it's called.
something with the Kraken.
Yeah. Unless that one wins. Unless that happens. To be
Ruby
just-
Gilliman, Teenage Kraken.
Unless that is the greatest film of all time,
Ruby Gilman, sorry, Teenage
Yeah.
Kraken.
then this one will definitely be
Yeah.
the best animated film. But also, I mean, just in terms of the animation itself, because I love that 2D 3D mixture. Hopefully, the quality in this film gets everyone else to really buy into this style and see how far they can take it. Because I think the bad guys did a good job. I think Puss in Boots did a good job. And I think Across the Spider-Verse blows the first one out of the water 100%. So I think
It's a worthy success.
if this becomes the future of animation in America, I
might be
am
because the
totally fine with
the
it.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie.
That's true, yeah.
Which I'm very
TMNT.
excited for.
No, it's the exact same way. So,
All right.
I think I'd give this one a solid S. Maybe A plus.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give it an A.
Mm-hmm.
A plus.
There you go.
Cool.
There you go.
We'll see you guys. That's our review.
That is our review. Go see this film.
Go see this movie. Tell us what you think. Make sure to like and subscribe. Hit us with a follow.
Make sure you hit the bell as well.
And we'll see you guys around.